All right, now that we looked at the HTML and getting all of the content in here and making sure we have it separated and giving some things classes so that we can do these rows and columns and things, we're going to work through adding some of these styles into the CSS. First, I'm going to add in just some basic styles, and then we'll look at adding some things that we need for making those columns and rows work. So I'm going to go ahead and add these basic styles, and then we'll come back to take a look at styling those classes and IDs that we gave to our elements. All right, now we have some simple styles here for our page, styling this container and giving some space outside of it. Setting some background colors, some image sizes and margins, just some really basic stuff. But now I want to take a look at getting this column layout that we wanted to go for. So each of these that we have in rows, I want to style that row. So here I'm going to select the class of row, and we'll give that a few styles. Setting some padding so that it's got a little bit of space inside of them. I'm going to go with 50 pixels on top, 25 pixels, 5 pixels, and 25 pixels of padding. And the extra space in there. We'll save that, refresh this. Now we can see we got that padding that already is starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to change the line height to 1.5. When we refresh our page, we can see we got a little bit better spacing with our text, so that looks a little bit better. And now I want to take a look at styling our columns. So because we have this class of COL on here, we can style that and just by selecting everything that has that class of column so that we can get a certain look for that. And for each of those, I want to, well, we'll come back to this actually. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that class there, and we'll give it some styles later because it'll make a little bit more sense to do that. So here, when we come back to the HTML, we have a lot of things with the class of column. We have these 3 sections, but we also have some additional sections down here that have some columns on them. So I want to style these 3 that have the images and text in them and wait to style the others. So here we're going to style col-1, col-2, and col-3 so that we're only styling these 3 columns this certain way and not affecting anything down here in this about and this sidebar content that we have. So now in here I want to float these. So float left, because that's going to take those columns out of the normal flow, float them up against each other as long as there's room. And because I want 3 columns, because remember we're styling for this desktop view here, and I want 3 columns, so I'm going to give these a width of 30%. And then we can save this. Let's refresh this, and now we see we do have these 3 columns, they're floated left, and now we have this about thing coming over here and then picking up down here. And That's happening because of floating that. We floated it 30%. So that's 90% once you add up the 30, 30, 30. And then we have about 10% of the container left here. So this has room to come up here. If we made this a little bit larger, let's say 33%, then that's not going to have space to come up here. But we're going to keep this as 30%. And because we floated this, let me margin right 5%. And now we have some things dropping down, but for the desktop view, it's still down there, so we still have a little bit of weirdness going on. So there's just some more things that we need to take care of. So adding that 5% margin on the right side, it does space these out a little bit, but then, like I said, we get a little bit of weirdness happening, and that has to do with these being floated the way we're floating them. So I also know I don't want this margin on the last column, so I can select that -3 and margin right 0 so that I'm removing that margin. And we can see that is putting these 3 columns here at this point, but as we move forward, when we get to this point in the screen size, this should actually be changing. So keep that in mind as we move forward with this. But now I do have this 3-column layout. I like that. But now this main content section here should be on the left, and these two should be stacked on top of each other on the right. So we have some things that we need to do with that. So here, remember we gave that this ID of main content. So here, selecting main content. And then we're going to give that a width of 65%. Float it to the left, that way that other content can float up against it. And we'll give it that same margin right of 5%. Now let's save this, and we'll see how this is looking. And it's getting better. It's getting closer to what we wanted it to be. So here we can see we do have these 3 columns. We have this main content, and on the desktop view we do have this over here on the right. So now we need to keep adding some styles to this so that we can continue getting a little bit better look. So we have 65% here for that sidebar. What class did we give that? Was it just class sidebar? Yep. So here dot sidebar. We can tell this we only want it to be, excuse me, 30% of the width. And we're going to go ahead and float that left also, even though it's already kind of up against it. And then we have this sidebar part, sidebar 1, sidebar 2. So here, I'm going to select sidebar 1. And we're going to give it some background color. So background dash color. We'll go with the light green. And we want to style our sidebar to. We're going to give that that light blue color that we're using nowhere. So now saving that, refresh it, and we see we have some issues because of the floating that we're doing, and we've taken everything out of the normal flow. The sidebar is floating, the main content's floating, each of those columns is floating. So now we have to do something to fix that, and like we had looked at before in previous videos, we need to add that clear fix. So here in the HTML, we need to give that clear fix to our rows. So here, section, class, col, I can also give that a class of clear fix. No, not the column, the row. So clear fix, and then down here, this row also needs that class. We'll save this, and we can see right off the bat we don't have any changes. It's because we need that clear fix rule in our style sheet. So clear fix colon after, and then display table. Content colon empty string, and clear both, so that we're clearing the left and the right. Now just adding that in, we can save this, refresh it, and we see now we do have that whole background there. We're getting these colors here on the right and that sidebar, and this is kind of its own content at this point. So then the only thing left is to do a little bit of cleanup, adding a little bit more style to these sidebars. So we're going to give them some padding, change the font size a little bit. So padding, we'll say 20 pixels all around. Change the font size to 0.9 EMs, and then give them some margins of 0, 0, 15, and 0. And then I'm going to give this a second one those same paddings. So because I'm going to do that, giving that this sidebar dash part, I can just put those in there because both of these are going to have that same style, and we gave both of them this sidebar part class. So now when we save this, we refresh our page, and this looks a little bit better. When we show this page at full width, we can see we do have this layout that we're going for, and I do want to make one more quick change, and that's up here where we had this class of column. I want to give this a text align center, and then column and the paragraph tags that are inside of those columns, I want to set the text align to the left. That way this should center the image, but not the paragraph. So it should center the image and the heading, and we can see it did that, and that looks a little bit better. And we have this multi-column layout, but then in the next video we're going to look at changing this layout so that when we resize our page, we don't start getting this overlapping. We looked at that a little bit in another video, but we'll look at it specifically with this one and how we can change that to get those multiple layouts that we're going for.